Hello, hang on a second. There are disadvantages to being as amateur at this as I am. One of them is the lighting. In order to make it look semi-decent, I turn on the light over the stove, but if the camera is too much this way, then that shows up and messes things up. So I adjusted it. I didn't see it till after I'd started recording and decided not to restart. This channel, after hanging at 7 subscribers for a long time, is now up to a huge number, 9. That is an increase of 2 in recent days. And I don't have any dreams of millions of subscribers. That's not my goal. But having 9 now means that I might be reaching a few more people with the truth of Christianity. And as I've said in other videos, I'm trying to take elements of Christianity and make them comprehensible to those who know little or nothing about Christianity. My goal isn't to make you into Christians, although certainly if you through this channel come to Christ, I am not going to complain. Evangelism is always a good thing. But my goal is to educate you so that you can make an intelligent choice. If you don't know what Christianity is, you cannot make an intelligent choice about it. I am recording this, well, it's 12:25, so it's now into the very early morning of the 28th of January 2026. And I don't know when I'm going to upload this. I'm not going to put any kind of an indicator on it that says you have to upload this soon. It'll go into the folder I have of videos that are already in the can. Next time I upload, it'll go in the randomizer. Whichever one comes up on top, that's what I'll upload. So this may be weeks, months in the can before I ever actually uploaded it. But at the time I'm recording it, Minneapolis, specifically in Minnesota as a state, are in an actual, though not declared, state of insurrection against the federal government. And I'm going to try to keep this background short. I'm going to try. The United States Constitution delegates to Congress the power to enact what the Constitution calls a uniform rule of naturalization. Congress has done so, and part of that uniform rule of naturalization is the requirement that to become a citizen, you have to get a passport, you have to get a visa. When you come here, you have to get a green card, you have to pass the test, you have to take the oath, then you become a citizen. That is the path to citizenship that Congress has established. As part of that, there is the fact that if you don't follow that process, you are in fact breaking the law. And when you break the law, you're a criminal. Now, we don't throw people in prison for coming here illegally. We simply send them back where they came from. This is all constitutional. It is in accordance with the powers which the states, through the Constitution, delegated to the central government. And in Minnesota, specifically Minneapolis, there is a rebellion against that constitutional law. There is rebellion against the enforcement of that law. Now, you may think the law is wrong, but it is in place. It is in accordance with the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land in the United States. You may think that's wrong, but it's been that way since the original 13 states ratified the Constitution. That is the foundation of our system. It is this document which created the federal government. It is superior to the federal government, and the only way to alter the system is to either amend the Constitution or through a convention of the 50 states, or at least a quorum of the states, design and present and ratify a new Constitution. Anything else is by definition invalid and illegal. You don't have to like that, but it's the fact. You don't have to like the law of gravity. You may think that if you jump off a bridge, you should float. But you cannot change. What will happen is that you'll fall. Just because you don't like a thing does not mean that it changes or that you can ignore it with impunity. Now, with that background, what's the Christian position? I've laid out the constitutional position. What is the Christian position? There's a whole section in the 13th chapter of the book of Romans in the New Testament, in the Bible, which discusses a Christian's relation to the government. And it's worth noting that Paul was not writing here of the constitutional government we have in the United States. He was writing about a dictatorial, tyrannical Roman government wherein the emperors very often would order people to die just on a whim. People want to call Donald Trump a fascist. The fact that they're still up standing in public saying that proves they're wrong. The supreme fascist of all time, Adolf Hitler, would never have allowed that. Benito Mussolini, who created fascism, would never have allowed that. No socialist ruler, and fascism is a form of socialism. No socialist ruler would ever allow that. Donald Trump does. If he's a fascist, then you're looking right here at me. You're looking at a 22-headed hydra. It's just that simple. Either he's not a fascist or I'm a 22-headed hydra. You want to call Donald Trump a fascist? When Paul wrote this book, he was living under a government which persecuted Christians just for being Christians and killed them. Paul himself later died simply because he was a Christian. And so he's writing about a Christian's relationship to the government, and in verse 7 he says, "Render to all what is due them. Tax to whom tax is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor." That's a kind of an expansion of what Jesus said, "Give to Caesar that which belongs to Caesar." Does the government have the right to tax you? Well, yes, then pay your tax. Complain about it if you like. I do. We pay so many taxes in the United States, and many of them that you don't realize you're paying because they're part of the price of whatever you're buying. We pay so many taxes that there are working people, not rich people, who are paying most of the taxes. But ordinary working people, many of us, spend 6 months working for the government and then 6 months working for ourselves. Half our income is going in one sort of tax or another. But the government has the authority legitimately to tax, so we pay it. Government officials, by virtue of their office, are entitled to the respect that's due to the office. I have no respect for Bill Clinton as a person. I have no respect for Barack Obama as a person. I don't have much respect for Donald Trump as a person. But the office that they held deserves respect. A police officer may be a corrupt thug, that has happened. He may be the willing tool of a dictatorship. We saw that all over the place in 2020. But the office of police officer is worthy of respect, because the whole purpose of the office of police officer is just exactly what the motto on the doors of LAPD cars says: to protect and serve. The individual officer may fail to live up to that ideal, but that's the purpose of the office he holds. So what does this mean for Minneapolis? Well, before I get into that, I have to say that based on their words and their actions, I have to believe that few, if any, actual Christians are involved. And so there is the difficulty in that instructions that God gives to Christians are for Christians. And while they may be perfectly valid moral instructions, to expect those who are outside of Christ to be able to follow them or to want to follow them is kind of like expecting a Nile crocodile to want to eat plants and do it. You may have seen the video of the migrations in Africa where they cross the river and this wildebeest is splashing along, and all of a sudden the crocodile has him. To expect someone who's not a Christian to live like a Christian, truly and genuinely live like a Christian, is like expecting that crocodile with his jaws clamped on the wildebeest's neck to let go and go eat grass. It's not possible, and it's not going to happen. But for those of us who are Christians, you may be a Christian, you may not. I hope, in a way, I honestly hope you're not, because you're the person this channel exists for. You're the one I'm trying to help understand things. But for those of us who are Christians, when we come to the 13th of Romans, and particularly this 7th verse, it's telling us one thing: obey the government until and unless it conflicts with the word and the will of God. Has God commanded us that we may not pay taxes? No, then we should. Has He ever commanded us that we should rise up in rebellion against the duly constituted government, which is carrying out or attempting to carry out its constitutional function? No, then we should not do so. Has He ever said that we must disobey laws that we just don't agree with? No, then we must not. There are unjust laws, yes. But are those laws unjust simply in the sense that they do not treat people right? Or are they unjust in the sense that they conflict with what God has revealed? Those two are not necessarily the same. I believe it is absolutely, incontrovertibly unjust to hire someone who's black just because he's black, regardless of the qualifications of the several candidates. It is especially unjust to hire someone who's black when someone who's white is better qualified for the job. It is unjust to the white person who doesn't get the job, even though he's better qualified. It is unjust to the black person who does get the job because it gives him what he does not deserve. The white person did not deserve the negative answer. The black person does not deserve the positive answer. Both are getting what they don't deserve. Therefore, it is unjust to both. Should we disobey that law? I think that might be a subject for debate, because the Bible does tell us that as far as God is concerned, there's not white or black, there's just sinner or saint. There's just unsaved or saved. There's just wicked or godly. Without regard for color, without regard for language, without regard for where you're born. Is it unjust for law enforcement to arrest and deport people whose very presence in the United States is a violation of United States law created in conformity to the Constitution? No, that is not unjust. Therefore, we have no right to interfere with that. Would it be unjust if the government, whether city, county, state, or federal, enacted a law that said Christians may not meet together? That would be unjust, and further, it would be unjust because it contradicts what God has commanded. He has commanded us to meet together. And Christians from the beginning to this day continue to meet even where the law says they may not do so, because we must obey God rather than men, as Peter said in the book of Acts. God's law trumps human law. And good man-made law is that which follows and seeks to implement in the world the principles of God's law. You can't legislate morality. A law against murder is legislated morality. A law against rape is legislated morality. A law against theft is legislated morality. Why does the law prohibit murder, rape, and theft? Because murder, rape, and theft are wrong. They're not just illegal, they're wrong, and it's because they're wrong that the government has declared them illegal. You can legislate morality. All good law is, in fact, the legislation of morality. Bad law is law that does not seek to not make people moral. I'm not saying we can do that. We can't. But good law is that which seeks to cause people to at least act morally, even if their only motivation is fear of punishment. We should obey all good law, even if we don't think it's the best law. We should obey all law which does not conflict with the divine revelation. And so those people who are rebelling against federal law and the Constitution in Minnesota, Christian or not, are violating the will of God by impeding the enforcement of valid, moral, good law. They are spitting in God's face. They may not realize it, but they are telling God that He is wrong. He doesn't know what He's doing. They don't care what He says. They're going to run things their way. Well, God does know what He's doing. He has the right to tell us what to do. And those who defy Him will sooner or later learn that. I can only hope and pray that those people in Minnesota learn it before it's everlastingly too late.